I reserve the right to change the terms of the agreement. The universe isn't just out there, it's interacting with you. Claim your power by embracing the unknown. This is Tracy with Tracy Talks, and I'm here to ignite your curiosity. Don't just listen, embrace it. There are times in life when I have agreed to something, and I agreed to something with the current perspective and understanding that I had at the moment. When I read the terms, it sounded like a good deal. It sounded like what I wanted. It sounded like it was the perfect opportunity for me. But as with life, oftentimes when we agree to something, we don't really know what it all means, and we don't know how it's all going to change us or how we're going to feel when we fully enter into the situation. This has been a constant occurrence for me in relationships. You meet someone, and at face value, you accept terms of the relationship. And what does that mean? How are we going to communicate? What is the relationship, and how do we define our interactions? And a lot of times we agree to something thinking it is something that we can live with, that it is a term that we are prepared to be able to operate within the boundaries. So many times, once we get into these situations, we realize and we start to feel, hey, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't make me feel good. I don't feel the feelings that I hoped that I would. For me, this has kind of been a common occurrence where I've been in a relationship. I reached a point where emotions came up in me. I had certain feelings that I didn't know I was going to have about a circumstance I didn't know was going to occur. And I'm not just saying the thing was bad, but something happened and I had an emotional reaction. And oftentimes, as a woman, I want to talk about what happened. I want to talk about the situation. I want to talk about how I'm feeling about it. And I want to talk about where do we go from here? I am driven by emotions. I am an emotional person. I cannot shut off my emotions. And I am no longer willing to feel bad about having emotions. I also realize I cannot emotionally prepare for every circumstance that's going to come up. I can't hypothetically anticipate what's going to happen and how I'm going to feel about it because I can't anticipate my emotional response. I am no longer willing to operate within terms that were established in the beginning of something. And I think that's important. I think that's important for all of us to recognize that when we enter into a relationship with someone, that the relationship is constantly growing, it's constantly changing, it's constantly evolving. Because as we get to know one another, we learn more about each other. And if you're with someone who wants to continue to be in relationship with you, should understand that it's going to evolve. It is, however, been my personal experience that men don't really want to talk about emotions. We can't say those things. They don't want to talk about feelings. I'm finding it difficult to have conversations with men right now. I'm finding it difficult that in 2025, the men that are in my life don't want to just say those things. They don't want to just say how they feel. They don't want to just name it. And I know we can go back, oh, well, men haven't been encouraged to talk about their emotions and they don't know how and all of this crap. The world is not going to stop spinning if you talk about how you feel. And it's really frustrating. It's really frustrating to be at this point in my life. I am a person who is highly focused on growth and evolution. That is where my mindset is coming from. And I'm finding it extremely frustrating that the men in my life cannot communicate in healthy ways how they feel. I am no longer willing to accept these terms. I'm no longer willing to accept these agreements. And we shouldn't have to. We shouldn't have to carry the responsibility for keeping relationships together. We shouldn't have to be responsible for the burden of the emotional investment. I am looking for people in my life who can operate at the same level of emotional intelligence that I am. I am looking for people who are unafraid to explore their emotions. I'm looking for people who are unafraid to name whatever it is. We are no longer in this time where anybody is being encouraged to stuff things down, to hide them away, to pretend they don't exist. Those days are over. There is a level up that is being required. And it's really going to be required when we as women no longer accept the terms of the agreement. I get it. I get it. 20 years ago, I said this was acceptable, that this was the relationship and the terms that we had agreed to, but I no longer accept that. And are you going to walk with me? Or am I going to continue on my own? We have one life here, just one. No do-overs, no restarts. The terms of the agreement need to change as we change, as our interests change, as our needs change. I personally cannot imagine being in a 20-year relationship still operating under the original terms of the agreement. I cannot imagine doing that. I am not the same person today as I was 20 years ago. And maybe we as women have been hyper-focused on building an identity on our own. I have spent a great deal of personal time with personal empowerment, personal development. And a lot of that came from not receiving the emotional support that I needed. And the irony here is there are a high percentage of men who feel intimidated and emasculated by a strong woman. I'm here to tell you that I had to develop so much of my strength because I did not feel supported by a man. I'm talking about emotions. I'm talking about true connection. I'm talking about true intimacy. I am not a man. I do not know how men need to go about developing emotional intelligence. All I can speak to is me being a woman looking for true connection, looking for true support. And I'm talking about emotional. I'm not talking about financial and how men are angry about having to be the financial supporter. That's a whole topic for another day. Women have become stronger because there was a real need for us to develop our own safety and security. Because we weren't getting it. We weren't getting it in the relationships. I no longer accept the terms of the agreement. I will no longer operate within a relationship that is not going to grow and evolve as we grow and evolve. I really have a hard time accepting that women are the only ones who need to be emotionally invested, who are expected to communicate verbally their emotions. I was using AI recently to rewrite some passages and to just explore the options of AI. And I asked it a question. I asked AI a question. And I was a little disappointed in the response that it gave me. And I told AI, I said, "You hurt my feelings." AI apologized for hurting my feelings. That was not the intention of the conversation. And gave suggestions about why they responded in the way that they did. Part of me thought the response was cute and humorous. Another part of me had a little twinge of pain and sadness. As a woman, how many times had I longed for a true emotional apology, a true emotional response about how the interaction unfolded. How many times had I been looking for that in a romantic partnership? And I mean, it seems like such a simple request. It seems like such a simple statement to make. If you care about somebody, if you care about your partner, and you see that something that you have done hurt them, and you can't acknowledge that, you can't apologize for that, you can't say, "I'm sorry, that was not my intention." I can no longer operate in that space. I can no longer operate with someone who cannot acknowledge my emotions, who cannot acknowledge my feelings, who refuses to fully care for me in the ways that I need to be cared for. I will no longer accept the terms of the original agreement. Thank you for listening to this episode of Tracy Talks. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe, and share with others who would enjoy listening to this podcast. Friends can find Tracy Talks available on iTunes, Spotify, Substack, and YouTube. Hit me up on Instagram and Facebook at More Tracy Talks. And until next time, we meet again.